So here is my question. How do you deal with teenagers, specifically the testing their limits, pushing boundaries, navigating their own independence in teenagerhood? I want to give them their space and make their own choices and deal with those consequences, but it's so hard. I don't think I'm alone in this. Would love any words of wisdom you might have. Kathy in Southern California.
Okay.
So teenagers, how do you deal?
I'm taking notes.
Yeah. Write it down. You want me to start?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, of course, every child has a different personality, has different needs, has different ways of communicating. I think the greatest thing that I've learned through the process, because I have adults and teenagers and elementary school, so I kind of have it all, is you have to listen to them. You have to hear what they're saying before telling them what to do. And I think so much of the time they feel so much pressure just from all around their peers in school and Instagram and all the things. So I think it helped me so much just like really listening to them and getting to know who they are and what they like to do and having an open communication like that, because I feel like those phases aren't so vicious. You know, when you're really having open communication and talking a lot and really understanding them. And then sometimes you're like, oh no, you are wrong. Yeah. And we are just gonna leave it there, you know? But sometimes they need to be heard first before you kind of like set the line down.
I think for me, and I learned this from my parents, which is to default to trust.
Oh, I love that.
I think if you have done the work earlier, that this is a time when they are pushing boundaries, when they are trying to figure out who they are as an adult. And if you default to trust, saying, okay, I'm going to trust you to make this decision. And then if they make poor decisions, then you pull back that trust. But like when I was growing up, my friends would come to the window and they'd knock on the window like, hey, sneak out, come on, let's, we're going to go do this. And I'd be like, I'm just going to go tell my mom I'm leaving.
Yes,
right?
Me too.
And so I would go in and my mom trusted me. She knew me. She knew my friends because they'd made it a priority to get to know who I was hanging out with. And so they trusted my friends. But my mom would be like, okay, just, make sure that you check in when you get home. And that's what I've tried to model with my kids. And like 85% of the time, they live up to that trust. And then there are times when they really don't. And you really kind of have to pull back and say, I'm sorry, you broke that trust. And now we're going to start from back here instead of up here. But allowing them that freedom, I think, turns them into better adults.
That was perfect. I really think that's big.
Yeah, I think the combination, it really helps. I'm thinking about, I used to take their questions or pushback and things so personally.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't until I realized this is brain science. Like this is developmentally appropriate that they are pushing back, that they want to be independent, that they want everyone to know that they and themselves that they're separate from you. That is part of growing up and part of
their own
that's
identity.
That's my phrase, developmentally appropriate. This is developmentally appropriate.
Very big phrase.
It is really
very advanced.
It really calms me down though to not take it so personally, to say, but I love you so much and I just want you to do all the things that I want you to do because I've really thought about this and I've read a lot of articles and I know better. It is hard because every kid is different.
Yeah.
And they need different things and you're a different parent as they grow and develop. So there's so many factors, because that used to drive me nuts as a teenager where I was like, well, you didn't know I did this.
Yeah.
Or
you only knew.
Yeah.
The rules for me were this, and then for my other sibling, and I remember my mom just having this like exasperated look on her face, like, yeah, you're right, I don't know, whatever. And now I'm like, now I know that exasperated look, that because I have it. Like, yeah, you're right. I do treat my kids differently because I'm different and they're different, and I don't get super caught up in all things being equal and fair, because I don't think there's any way to be totally fair and totally equal. I just throw myself to the mercy of the court as far as like the kids, and like, you're right, I'm doing the best that I can.
And something that comes to mind, I have, thank goodness, haven't had anyone go too crazy on me. So that would be really hard, right? If you had someone that just really broke your trust time and time again. But I do have really close friends who have struggled with that. And then Now it's like, no, they are doing, like, living a separate life or whatever. And I think in that time, it's almost like you have to just, because they're kind of so far gone almost at that point that it's like, okay, we need to like start from scratch, and they need to know that you are proud of them and that you love them. Because I think all of a sudden they start doing all the dishonest things, and then they feel bad about themselves, and then they don't feel trusted, and then it kind of feeds on itself, you know? And so I think that it's super helpful to like just kind of dial back and go, okay, I kind of want to bring this child back. So how am I going to do that? And I think it's just like loving them and letting them know that you are proud of them, even though they aren't this thing that maybe you would hope that they would be,
or that they think you hope
think they
are.
should be. Yeah. And then sometimes I think they soften, and I've seen it with my friends. They soften, and it takes time, of course, and not everybody is going to have this outcome, but then they start coming back, and you kind of have to like readjust the rules and things like that. But eventually, hopefully, you start getting them in a direction where they are being honest with you. There's more communication, because sometimes that distress comes from just a lack of communication too, and they feel like they can't come to you, they can't share the things, so they're making up all the lies, and then it just creates even more separation. And you know, I don't know. So
I like what you talked about, building trust, and I think it's scary no matter what age your kids are, to give them those opportunities where you're building the trust, because often what you're letting them then do is something that's like really scary for you.
Yes.
But you're saying, let's do this. And I just remember how much it meant to me to be trusted by my parents. It felt really good. It was a really good like self-esteem.
I was going to say a confidence booster in yourself too, which is great. But then also it kind of falls back into like, we have this timeline for our kids, and we think, okay, you graduate this, and then you go to college, and then you get married, and they are not all moving at that same speed. And sometimes they just need to feel like you're okay with them not following, you know, the perfect timeline. But if it's like obviously seems threatening or something emotionally, then that's a different thing, you know. But sometimes they're just like, I don't want to go to college yet, you know, and you're thinking to yourself, well, you really should, you know. But I think I've had some of my kids where they did take 2 years off, and now they're in school, and it's like, all is well, you know, like don't freak out about those things.
At the time, you're like,
it's the
you
biggest
can't take time off. What are you going to do?
You just think, I mean, I think they're figuring themselves out too, and a lot of times we think all of a sudden they're supposed to be an adult, or they're supposed to be a teenager, mature enough to make certain decisions, and that's just not always the case. And so patience, I think, and always making them think that you are, like, you still think that they're awesome.
You're still their champion.
Yes, exactly. You're still cheering them on, even if they are not following along what the neighbors' kids are doing or what the cousins are doing, you know? Because they have a different path.
Okay.
It's gonna be okay.
So hard.
I know.
It's so hard because you love them so much and you want their lives to just turn out perfectly, and you can't force that to happen as much as you try. And I've tried, like I really tried, but it doesn't. You just have to.
Or even just helping them. Not that I want to take obstacles away, but there are lessons that you're like, I had to learn this the hard way, especially like when it comes to relationships with other people, or like early boyfriend, girlfriend things, and you're just trying to say, I promise I'm going to save you, just like, ugh, and they won't. They have to experience it for themselves.
I just want to thank you, ladies, for all being here today to
Thanks
share
for having
your
us.
love of motherhood and this Council of Moms.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Thanks.
This was fun.
The Lisa Show is a production of BYU Radio, and a special thanks to McKay Menden and Richie T. Stedman to help with the production of The Lisa Show. Be sure to check out, subscribe, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you ever want to leave a question maybe for the Council of Moms, you can email us at thelisashow@byu.edu.